are now listening to United 96 Podcast on the RFK Refugees Podcast Network.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to United 96 here on the RFK Refugees Podcast Network. Ted here, John here, another crazy week that'll probably involve like about 5 minutes of talking about the games, and like the rest of the show is going to be all covering the craziness of since the Wayne Rooney hiring. We'll get right into it as we talk the show. But first, I you doing, my friend? I see you adjusting your camera.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm
trying to get in focus.
I don't think I'm aligned correctly yet. I gotta fix it. How was my week? It was pretty good. I can't complain. I don't remember anything that happened in it now. There was soccer games that I watched. I don't think I did much else. Oh, I was in Virginia Beach. I was in Virginia Beach all weekend. I went to the beach with a child who was decided she's afraid of water after previously liking the water and then deciding the water was bad.
Kids, man.
I'm told they change like every week. So this week was a week we probably should not have been at the beach, I guess. How about yours?
It was good. Watched soccer. The Kickers were my one hope for men's soccer, and they unfortunately lost. But we signed a new player who apparently is supposed to be pretty good. So that news just dropped today. DC United was bad. The Spirit was meh, but in the grand scheme of things, still bad. It was not a good sports weekend, and also just stretching my time between Richmond and Lynchburg.
Hard to be in two places
2 more weeks
at once, for sure.
Yeah, it is. But let's jump into it. We're gonna get to probably the news I think most people want to hear us talk about. But we got to eat our vegetables. We got to talk a little bit before we get to the dessert of rumors and scandal and everything else. We got to get into the talk about the games. DC United had 2 games that we're going to talk about a little bit. We're going to kind of merge the segments a little bit, merge the games a bit. We'll obviously be probably talking about one at a time, but we're not really going to have defined segments here because they were basically, in all honesty, John, from my perspective, results are starting to become less and less important. Specifically like 2-1, because this team is being blown up right in front of our eyes. And we'll get to that in a minute. But first, John, let's start with Columbus. 2-2 draw. I think it was... this was the first game, I thought, since the Rooney announcement. I believe that's correct, right?
Yep, I think so.
Am I correct about that?
Yep, it's the first one where he was calling in the lineups.
Yep, where he was calling in. So the biggest shift, obviously, was to a 4-man back line. I thought the game looked probably one of the strongest performances we've seen out of the team. They look like they definitely bounced back, so to speak, from being really just nothing in that Philadelphia game. So you did see the team respond. I think they were certainly, it's good to see them, I think, come into this game at home against a tough opponent and say, that wasn't us, we can be better. And they showed it. I guess we can talk about some of the defensive. The defensive was bad, but offensively, I thought they were dangerous. Again, also Columbus was resting players. They probably thought they could, but it's a sense the team still was able to kind of, you could see maybe the beginnings of a team under Rooney maybe having a little bit of an extra pep in their step. I thought there was several players that clearly elevated their game, knowing that the new boss is in town, the new boss is watching and paying attention.
Let's talk about who those were. I think that's important, right? I think that, particularly as we're looking at a team that is being disassembled for parts as it's being playing. I would say that Chris Durkin, in the correct position, and we'll talk about that in a second, but playing in the midfield, sort of his general home, I thought played very well in the Columbus game. Taxi is Taxi. He had a number of missed opportunities, but the cool thing about it, similar to Ola Kamara, is that even though he should have scored more goals than he did, he still put one in the net. He missed a penalty, which he's really, really going to regret. I think that was a tough one. That, by the way, just from a process perspective, kind of a hilarious outcome. Ref, remind me the way it went. The ref said foul. What did the ref indicated something? The linesman overruled him. Then it went to VAR to overrule the linesman.
Yes. weird, just weird overall VAR type of game. We'll get into the real controversial Probably the biggest controversial moment of it all, but just like a weird situation. You're right. It was referee called penalty. Linesman was like, no, not a penalty. I'm going to overrule you. Said, I don't think that was a penalty. He didn't get the ball. Then it goes to VAR, and then it ends up becoming a penalty. He still misses the penalty, so I don't know if it really mattered in the end. But hey, that's it's a good moment to see Taxi Fountas when things just aren't going his way. He still finds a way to put himself on the score sheet, put the ball into the back of the net. I have a feeling I think he has like a certain record for like goals in like games or something like that. The forward he was on the opposite side, Cucho Hernandez, is probably going to smash that record into little bits very, very quickly here. Two very just really sort of very nice goals from him in this game. But, overall, I mean, I think we know this team is bad defensively. They need help defensively. I'm not sure if it's going to come this window. I'm not sure if it should come in this window, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But it was just kind of, it was a good performance to see this team kind of fight back. I'm trying to think of I think Camarnie Smith also, he has a bit of a pep in his step from what we've seen previously.
I would say one player we have to spotlight, and I think for a good reason. And we're also going to have an interview with him later this week, which is news to Ted that I'm breaking now on the episode. Jackson Hopkins, who has been anointed as the new chosen one by our manager after approximately one training session and maybe some film at the U20s. But he decided that Jackson Hopkins is going to be a major part of what this team's going to look like under Wayne Rooney. And he performed very, very well. I think, Ted, you were singing his praises on Twitter, sort of saying, like, you can see that in this new system, this player brings exactly the skill set that's needed. And he's, as you're building this team, if you're going to fill one of your attacking spots with an 18-year-old kid on the minimum, like that's great. That's more money to spend elsewhere on the team where you need reinforcements.
Yeah, it's good to see, and we'll get into talk about identity, and I've been banging the drum for years about what I think DC United should do and what I think they should make their identity based on their current ownership situation. I think what Jackson Hopkins does is you can see the skill he has on the ball, but I think there was a moment he had the ball down the right side and he had time and space. But I know so many players, young players, even players as skilled as like Kevin Paredes, that would just immediately pick their head up, say, all right, I'm just going to hit a first one-time ball, try to score the goal. He doesn't. He picks his head up. I think he sees, I want to say it was either Estrada or Roberta, I can't remember who, and just picks him out right in the center of the field. It doesn't amount to a goal, but it amounts to probably a better opportunity than if he just tried to hit that ball first time. So that's like that type of patience, that type of vision is something you don't see in a lot of young players. And I'm extremely excited about him. I'm excited that the one out of all the moves that Rooney has made, some I've liked. We'll get into those. Some I've been a little bit nervous about. We'll get into those. I think it's a positive that he very much seems to trust youth players and want to sort of play them and grow them. And I think that could be an overall positive when talking about the team. So I like Jackson Hopkins. I think he's deserved minutes. He's deserved starts. And I think it's great that we have a coach that's willing to do that. And we didn't have that with Chad Ashton. Chad Ashton did not seem, Hopkins very much vanished sort of into the lineup. And I was really concerned that he was not going to get the looks that he was going to get. And even though I heard all the stuff about Wayne Rooney, I was like, well, let's see what happens when he gets here. He might say like, oh, no, I need to win now. Like I got 2 years on this thing. So that does not appear to be the case. Which is a very good thing. Yeah,
I mean, well, you could say that he's just putting the players. Now, I don't think he's necessarily worried about building for the future. I think he's very much saying like, what do I have here now that can win me games now? Because again, year and a half. And Jackson Hopkins created the most chances on the field. There aren't any other players on the bench that you would say for sure have to be over him. So, very, very happy to see, as you are, another young player getting an opportunity and seizing it. And I think we're going to see a lot more of him here in the rest of the season. I hope that he has the legs for it. Coming from he's not played in college. He played a few games at Loudoun last year. Didn't really get a full season in. He's had international duty. I'm just hoping that he's got the legs this half season here that he's got a chance to really prove. Hopefully he's got the legs to be not just 15 minutes here, 10 minutes here. He's going to be 75 minutes, 90 minutes if he can be. And I think other than that, I mean, we could talk about the specifics. Fountas picks up a small knock and is made, and as a result is unavailable for the next game, which the effects of which are very obvious once you watch the game. And the thing, obviously, Kamara lays on the ground and puts in a goal in the 90th +2, which was great to be in the stadium. Yeah. Did I have money on Columbus winning that I placed after they got beat 7-0 by Philadelphia? Perhaps. So was I slightly mixed when that goal went in? Slightly. I'm never going to bet against DC United again, even though it seems to be most of the time a way for me to print money. That experience that experience of feeling like as DC United equalizes in extra time is a lesson. I've learned my lesson. I'll bet on other teams.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about that. I'll talk a little bit about that moment. I think it's been sort of talked to death. Columbus fans will contend till the end of time that was a foul. And you know what? I won't sit here and 100% disagree with them. I think even some DC fans were like, we got away with one there. What I will say is I agree. I may not agree with the initial call of whether that's a foul or not. I think the referee could very easily blow his whistle for a foul, but he doesn't. He keeps his whistle. Who knows what he sees that maybe causes him to hesitate a little bit. Then he goes to VAR, and the structure of what we want VAR to be is clear and obvious, beyond a reasonable doubt type of overturning. And you can't sit there and tell me that, I can't remember the Columbus defender who's grabbing on, I know it's Heinzike, I believe. Yes, Heinzike does, in the process, fall down and take out the Columbus defender, but he's also getting grabbed in the back. They're both tussling for the ball. I think the referee is fully within his right to say they are both committing a foul there. There is no way I can call that one way or another. I'm just going to let my original call stand, and it's a goal. I think if he calls a foul in live play, there's also no indisputable evidence to absolutely overturn that either. It's one of those things. So I think to me, that is almost the type of thing that I want VR to be, because I feel like we see too many times, it feels like some referees interpret this as, well, this is my chance to sort of re-referee the game. And it shouldn't be. It should be, clear and obvious that there was an error and it needs to be overturned. And that it should be a tool to assist, not a tool to referee the entire game. And I feel like we see some referees, in Europe, and also some around MLS, who think this is their way to sort of completely change how they referee the game. And I don't think it's a tool that should be used for that. It was a scrappy draw. And then we get to Minnesota.
This was no taxi, and this will be less talked about.
Less talked about. The game against Minnesota, no taxi, and it sure as heck looked like there was no taxi. And honestly, this is my argument for everybody talking about the running joke on Twitter is now, well, the team is focusing so much on the attack, and we have taxi. Why do we need to focus on attack? We have a bad defense. I say, true, but right now, if taxi's not on the field, this team has absolutely nothing. Like, you can expect maybe a little bit of a downturn when, like, your best player is out, but if you can produce almost nothing in the attack, no chances to mention of, no real cohesion.
No shots on goal at all in the entire 90 minutes.
No shots on goal. Look, when you are second from last or last place, I'm not sure where we are at this point. I'm not even looking at the standings at this point.
Bottom with 2 games in hand.
Bottom with 2 games in hand. So we're last place. Mm-hmm. Everything needs improvement. Offense, defense, midfield, everything. Goalkeeping, everything. And so I think right now, the right call now is to look at, well, how can we be more effective offensively, knowing that we're going to get a chance maybe in the winter to maybe retool that team defensively. I think you're going to see maybe some defensive players come in, and we'll see kind of how it is as far as that goes, whether they do sign a defensive minded player. But for right now, I think they're making the right call, and I think this Minnesota game is exemplifies it. Either that's a boring 0-0 draw or a 2-0 loss. I mean, there's no way around it.
Rafael Romo, just for reinforcing that, according to FootMob, has had 2 games all season, a rating above 7. Everything else has been 6, 5, 4. I'm not sold. Bill Hamid is apparently he's tweeting a little bit more now. He's back from the internet dead. Hopefully that means he's going to recover a little bit faster from this surgery than maybe thought. I don't think. I mean, obviously, it doesn't matter. If he is going to leave at the end of the season, I would prefer that he play some. The last time he left here, he wasn't played throughout the end of the season and just left because there was a contract dispute and he just didn't play and then left. So I hope that doesn't happen again, particularly if whatever's going to happen, he should be on the field at the end of the season in September. And Wayne Rooney should be looking. I'm trying to think of who's the goalie that played for Watford last year that does a whole bunch of YouTube videos. Is it Ben Foster?
I have no idea.
It's like his YouTube name is Cycling Goalkeeper, and he got fired from Watford because they were mad at him for taking YouTube videos all the time, like on the field, like during training, during warm-ups. He had like a little GoPro on, but he's available. He's unattached. He'd probably be better. But yeah, let's not talk anymore about that game. It was a disappointment. Players like Durkin were playing in the wrong position, and the Estrada Hopkins dual system up top was a mess, and I don't want to think about it anymore. It was a good like contrast. Like Columbus this is a team with faults, clearly still, but they have raw offensive talent through Taxi, and he makes the players around him a little bit better. But also they have really big defensive deficiencies, as seen by giving up a goal 1 minute after you score and take the lead.
Yeah.
And then the second game in Philly shows how paper thin the depth is, that when Taxi goes away, that all these other offensive weapons you have.
Minnesota, not Philly.
I'm sorry, Minnesota.
You said Philly.
Yeah. Philly exposed a lot of vulnerabilities. That showed us a whole bunch.
Philly exposed what happens if you try to have no plan and have no direction.
Yes.
Let's get into that. Let's get into that direction. So I think we've touched the games. Let's start. So we all came last week and we're like, John, I want to get your impression. Like, did you think you were going to see just the drastic overhaul of the roster the way you've seen it? When that Rooney announcement first came in, when they said, we're bringing him in here to, change up things, were you expecting it to be this quickly? Like, were you expecting just absolutely just like fire sale on certain players? I expected signings to come in. I was not expecting the amount of just pure, just clearly this team is clearly heading in a different direction.
Yeah, we were warned that trades were going to happen, right? I think that was sort of the rumor about it. I did not necessarily expect them to trade our best asset immediately for just money. That I did not expect. Although, and we'll talk about that right now, but like trading him for money makes the most sense if you're just going to be signing players willy-nilly here for the next month. So you've got to have room on the roster. So that's what this is all about. And a player that may have not fit is now on his way somewhere else.
I'm going to flex some of my very, very limited NFL knowledge. This feels like Jerry Jones coming into the Cowboys and trading Herschel Walker away. It's like, we're really bad. Who's our best? Who's the player who has the most value on this team? It's Julian Gressel.
Who's a team that anybody's going to want?
Yeah, it's Julian Gressel. Let's go ahead and trade him. So let's get into that Julian Gressel trade. So I want to take the how it was handled and just kind of place that to the side for now.
Mm-hmm.
From a pure, roster construction, what are your initial thoughts? I know you had some gripes with the amount of money the team got. I have fewer gripes about that, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But I want to start with you. Like, what were your overall like impressions of the trade, money wise? What'd you think about?
Yeah,
how
I'll start with
did
money.
You agree with
I'll start with money wise. I am upset with the amount of money they got and the way it was broken down over multiple years. That makes a little bit of sense because you're building for this year. Next year, you want flexibility, and you're not trying to compete this year. But I think if you are trading your only asset that anybody else wants in the entire league, no one, I mean, maybe someone want Ola Kamara, maybe someone want Russell Canals.
Russell Canals, yeah, would be the other one.
But
not as much as
the return on those is going to be very, very low. It's not going to be even half of what we got for Gressel. I look at other in-league moves. Granted, this is a move happening towards the end of the season, so you got to take some money off the board for that. I look at Mark Anthony Kaye, Paul Arriola, sort of the players for cash deals or funny money deals, and I am wondering, is this all the offers that they had on the table? Is this the best they could do? or was this a rush job in order to be able to get the players that Wayne wants in right now in this window? When we all know that this team is not going to sneak into the playoffs. It's so very unlikely. This team has to become an entirely different team in personnel and mentality in not enough time. It's too late.
Yeah.
If they did this earlier in the year somehow, they obviously couldn't because the windows are the windows. But like, if you were able to start or get, like within the first couple of weeks, if the Chad Ashton experience did never happened, and the guy that you wanted was available then, and you could make the move, and then you had almost a full season to play in this, that's one thing. The horse has left the barn. So that's why I'm somewhat concerned. Like, all right, is this the best time to cash in on this asset of a player who still had at least another year of team control through an option? He's making a lot of money, but he's also, as we've seen over and over again from the analysis of this trade, the best right wing back in all of MLS. Like, it's almost undisputed. Everyone is saying that. So that's my concern. My concern about from a return is like, did we have to do it right now with us knowing realistically where this team is going this year? And if we didn't, then was this the best we could do? And we'll never know that, right? Julian, I mean, no one really knew. This was a completely black box thing as far as how many teams were looking at him. So I would, from a money perspective, that's how I feel. I'm gonna get your response on it. And then the other thing about sort of fit, right? So the conversation was, we don't need a wingback anymore, so we should get rid of him. And then we said, all right, well, he could have played up further. He played up further for Atlanta. He played up further for Providence in college. But we decided that Jackson Hopkins is the way to go there. So Wayne is new to roster construction, but it is, if he thinks that at $800,000 whatever the amount of money he's making, $900,000, the marginal difference between what Jackson Hopkins can provide on the league minimum, I could probably find a way, from a money ball perspective, spread that money around the rest of the field and get better in more than one spot. That's possible. I mean, that's arguable. I'm not gonna get in the way of that. I think there's somewhat of a danger in placing the bet of the entire farm on a player with like 250 minutes in MLS. But I mean, sometimes you got to make rough calls, particularly if you're only here for a year and a half. You got to make big bets. So go ahead, Ted. What do you think about the move from a roster construction perspective?
I will say from this perspective, I agree with the notion that that this team seems to finally rather than just trying to retool certain things or bring in certain pieces, this now finally feels like a complete teardown and rebuild. Probably for the first time, I'm going to go ahead and say since 2017 or 2017. Was sort of the last time this really felt like a complete sort of teardown and sort of rebuild from the ground up. And even this, I don't think was as drastic with the amount of players I think we're going to bring in, and who we've already brought in and who we're planning on bringing in. And I think from that perspective, I like that. I think it is long past due for this team. You look at the Losada signing, and even the Losada signing, when they signed him as coach, that was more of a mentality shift of how they wanted to play. But he was playing with basically the same lineup from 2020. I mean, there was very, very few changes. It was very much just, maximize what you can, and then we'll figure it out once we get there. And even in 2022, there wasn't a drastic change either. I mean, there's more players going out that I think they had the ability to kind of bring in.
Hernan did not get backed like Wayne's about to get backed. I think that's clear.
Yeah. Very clear. The backing is very different between these two coaches. And I think honestly, I mean, it's probably because the microscope is now on. Mm-hmm. I mean, if they try to treat Wayne, and it's unfair to say, I mean, it is a little bit unfair to say so, that any other coach would probably not get the same treatment. But if you treat Wayne this, like, that is going to get major news if he expresses. I mean, mm-hmm. if Wayne makes the same comments as Hernan, like, that's going to be front lead story in England. That's going to be all over the world. So it's very clear that they realize they need to, give him resources, give him backing, make moves. I'm glad they're doing it now. From your perspective about the money, I'm not so upset over the money because I think you kind of hit it on the head, and I've kind of thought about this. There was a lot of GAM flying around early in the season. Now we're getting towards the end of the season. I think that pool is smaller. And I think you have other teams. I think the interest would have been lower because I think a lot of other teams were looking at this. They've already made their big TAMs. Like, you're not going to have Dallas go back in and drop another $1.5 million in GAM. Like, a lot of teams have already gone in and sort of spent that GAM, done their big signings, in the first window, and now there's less of a pool to really pull from. So I think they got enough. I like that it is spread more towards the back half. We should say it is $600K now. The $300K is incentives, but it's like 3 appearances. Basically, it's just like, if Gressel goes down in his first match over a season-ending injury, we get a little bit of a discount, or he goes down and breaks his leg and something, and his career's over, or something like that. I'd say count those 3 matches. As soon as he appears for those 3 matches, DC is gonna bank in that money. So I think from that perspective, I think the money is fine. I think they're freeing up probably a significant amount of cap space, and I think it's really the only player. Like, I don't think you're gonna get Steve Birnbaum. Maybe Russell Canals goes for a little bit. He probably would go for like Michael Berry type money, if I'm being honest. Maybe for a team looking for a depth piece, maybe to make that playoff push. But I do think this also does signal that the team, that no one's safe right now. Like, I mean, if Julian Gressel can get traded, I think Russell Canals could be certainly on that trade block. I think with the couple with one of the additions we're talking about, I think one of the international strikers, the 3 international strikers I have, is gone by this window. Mm-hmm. And let's get it. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, for sure.
Yeah,
I agree.
Let's get into it. Let's talk about the 2 players that have now been officially confirmed as coming. Let's start with Ravel Morse. Go ahead.
Well, I think we should probably touch on the process of how he was let go.
Right.
The controversial thing. And by the way, if you're listening, watching us live and want to call in and talk about how you feel about this, 202-709-8441. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So let's just talk timeline as we understand it. If you've had an opportunity to listen to the Soccer Pod this week, good. If you haven't, do that now. If you don't have an Athletic subscription and you're listening to us, I don't know what you're doing. You should have obviously done that already. But here's how it went. Julian Gressel is at the training facility, wearing DC United practice gear, getting stretched out, getting ready to go for training. And Rory Maleta comes into the room and says, "Hey, coach wants to see you now, not in 15 minutes, not after practice." He goes in, he sees Wayne, he sees Lucy, he sees Dave, and he says, "Oh, that's weird. Okay, I wonder what this is about." And they said, "Hey, Wayne says, this part of the whole thing is new to me, and I don't like it. But we're gonna go a different direction here, and you're now a Vancouver player." Lucy also says, "This is what's going on. As of yesterday, as of last night, you're a Vancouver Whitecap, so you're not a DC United player anymore." And that's that. And at that point, he said, "Excuse me, I didn't. I would have. Okay, I don't think that's the way to do things." But he even said, like, I told Dave, I told Lucy that this is not the way you should treat players." The fallout here is that his wife didn't know. Steve Goff had it on Twitter 2 minutes after he was told. So you can figure out the timelines of when he knew and when he didn't know, as far as Goff. So that was known clearly, and he didn't get to plan it all. His agent didn't know. According to the sources on the team side, Vancouver came hard for him, and they didn't let him talk to Vancouver. It was like sort of that was kind of weird. Like I guess there was a concern that Julian would say, "I don't want to go to Vancouver," and make a big deal about it, and then Vancouver would back off because they don't want a player who doesn't want to be there. So instead, they make the move and just hope. And I'm sure Lucy and Dave are like, "Oh, he loves Vancouver. He says it all the time. He's like, I just bought a house here, and my wife has a job here, but I've always wanted to move all the way across the country in the middle of the year. I've always wanted to do it." So I have 2 big quotes here. So I'll go through the quotes, and then you can speak on it. So he said, this is more about sort of the larger picture from Gressel's perspective. He said, "I think the club made decisions in the offseason to sign certain players, to get rid of certain players because of Hernan. To then pull the plug fairly quickly into the season was, you're always smarter after the fact, but it was premature, yes. Playing-wise, we weren't as far away as the results maybe were, and I think we were better, and we had moments where we could have won games that we didn't win. I think the personal side of things just got in the way. Dave, he was obviously not happy with how Hernan behaved, in a sense, so it kind of didn't take much to get rid of him. Now Wayne is coming in and making all these changes and talking to them about the roster and everything. And all of a sudden, I feel like they're realizing that it's not where they thought it really was. It's like a consultant coming in and telling you you're not doing a good job. So, first of all, Julian, we'll miss you. There's not another player on the team, and you and I have talked to like most of the players on this team, either through interview or whatever else. Julian's the best quote. Julian is like erudite, and he'll give you a real perspective on things, and not just sort of like give you a recycled quote. He's obvious.
You have to think Dave Casper's happy not to have somebody who has a podcast where they can
for sure
speak their mind, regardless of how like respectful he was. I'm sure the team media people, when he did his live show after their non-firing and everything else, there may be a little bit of an aspect.
I mean, and that's the case.
With Dave.
It would certainly go along with what we perceive Dave Casper's thin skin to be, right? Like in the scheme of things, that live show where Hernan where he got fired had like 100 people. It's more than we've got right now, but it's not a lot. Like he's not like dwarfing DC United's media presence. So if hopefully like that's a minor thing, but I bet it's not nothing.
The biggest thing is that I'm sure that had a lot more. I think if you look at the podcast views, you look at the action, I think it shows you how many people have listened back through that live stream. It was a lot. And then you have the quotes, and then you have the media grabbing onto it. I mean, they grabbed as soon as Gressel went live, you had Stephen Goff on there, you had other media members on there,
team employees on there,
ready to get a quote. I don't know if he had team. He's not a DC player. So
no. Oh, you mean today? You mean after the trade?
Yeah, today. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I think I'm not gonna. I know Dave Casper is not I'm not going to assign that. I think it was truly he's our best asset. We're moving in a different direction. It makes sense just to move him on. But obviously the way this was handled is crappy. It's indicative of really how American sports trades versus the rest of the world, how it's handled. This is not handled in, you play Football Manager for any number of times, and you see when you sell a player, they then have to agree to a deal, agree to a contract. And if they don't agree to the contract, then that's it. Your player stays with you. So it's not the way the rest of the world handles. And, the difference is in MLS, they sign contracts with the league. And so you can just say, "Yep, you're going to Vancouver." No ifs, ands, or buts. See ya.
So what he wanted was to say, he talked to Wayne when Wayne got there and said, "Hey, I understand that you might be going a different direction here. That's fine. I don't begrudge you that whatsoever. I just ask that you be transparent and honest with me and let me know what's going on. That's what I want." That was only a week ago. What he wanted was for Dave and Lucy to say, "Hey, we're going to go this way. Want to tell us like have that on your mind. That's going to happen. Are there places you'd like to go? Can we work together?" His theory was with his agent and him sort of like putting themselves in the block. He thought he could gotten a better return than what they got for Vancouver. I don't know how that all goes. That was at least his perspective on the end of it. Hey everyone, this is John. Are you enjoying the show? We hope you are. And if you are, we'd really appreciate it if you took a second to rate and review the show on whatever platform you're listening to this on. Those reviews help new people discover the show, and they help us grow our audience. And if you've got a friend or a family member who likes soccer, tell them about us. Thanks, and back to the show. One more quote I want to say, and then we'll wrap up on Julian. And this, I think you're going to have a lot to say on, and I have a lot to say on otherwise.
Yeah.
Julian says, "At times, I don't feel like the club knows who they are. That's an underlying issue. If you're a club that develops young players, Kevin Paredes, Jackson Hopkins, you should fully go that route like Dallas or other clubs do. But if you're not, if you're a team that goes out and spends money on international players and rarely hits on them, or takes chances without fully buying in, you're living in the middle. In this day and age in MLS, you need to choose. You can't live in the middle. Dave has been here a long time. He's had a lot of influence on all of the rosters that he's worked with, and there have been a lot of decisions. And many were not as good as the club would have liked, I think." He's spitting absolute 100% uncut truth here. And stuff that we have been saying for as long as we've had a podcast. I'm pretty sure. You and I have said Philadelphia Union, FC Dallas. That's what we need to do.
Yep.
And
That's what we said. That. And again, it's and I think Roach hits this best, and I've kind of picked up on this too. It's a team of half measures. I mean, this is what it's been since the stadium opening. It's never been a team that is willing to. They've always just tried to like dip their toe in the water of like a couple things, and like, no, let's move on to this, and you can't have that. You need to establish what you're going to be. And that's been the big. I mean, first it was like, we're gonna sign this mega superstar Wayne Rooney. That's it. That's all we're going to do. And maybe some other players, but, hey, we're just going to sign Wayne. And then it's been, we're going to go a different route. We're going to, spend money on, some young South Americans, and we're going to keep Ben around. Nope, not going to do that. All right, let's go. We're going to go to a pressing system. We're going to do that. Nope, we're not going to do that. And, maybe we'll develop a few players too and sell them. You got to pick a lane, and you can't do everything and try to make it work. I think you can spend a lot of money and also develop players too, but you've got to be full on those types of things. And I don't think DC has the ownership wherewithal to basically go full blast on not only developing talent, but spending money, or spending money and not developing talent. So right now we've already got a great pipeline. We've got a pretty good academy that started to develop.
We have a Dallas Cup winning.
That's the path.
U16s.
Yeah, that's the path of least resistance. Focus on your development. You've got such an amazing market, and you also have a market that doesn't. That you look at other teams out there. A lot of the players that become famous in DC are guys for other teams, non-soccer teams, are guys they draft and develop. Those are the ones that become the stars. The Alex Ovechkins, your Bryce Harper when he was here. I'm not sure if they got Juan Soto. I don't know much about the baseball knowledge there.
They signed him out of the...
Your Bradley Beal's like, DC loves, I think, sort of the homegrown stars. So I think that could be, an incredibly effective method at really, garnering interest in the stadium. And so I think it's a missed, now obviously the caveat is it's different in those leagues versus MLS, because once those players are good enough, they get sold to Europe. But I think it still could work in a certain sense. We talk about the players we love, like Bill Hamid and Eddie Nahar. They all came from sort of homegrown aspects. So I fully agree with Julian Gressel there. I really do hope with Dave Casper, this is sort of his last shot. If this doesn't work, if this completely burns again, there should be no longer any excuses, no longer anything.
No.
He should be shown the door.
I will be at the stadium with the sign, and I'm not a sign guy. That is it. Honestly, like, his point is this. DC has half tried many things. The only commonality in all those tries is Dave Casper. None of them worked. So what are you saying? What are you saying that he's bringing to the table anymore at this point? Just, repeated failure, or there's some wins in there, mixed in there, but the end result, the goal is never accomplished. So, this has got to be the last chance. Now
it's never sustained growth. It's never sustained growth under him. It's never been that.
And now would Dave Casper I'd ask him, but God forbid him ever do any media ever of any caliber, much less fan media. Boy, that would be great. Dave, if you're listening, we'd love to talk to you. But I don't think in his wildest dreams the way he would want to go out as Wayne Rooney as coach, calling the shots over his own transfer list and bringing in people he knows from Europe for a year and a half. That probably would not be the way he wants to spend his last roll of the dice. He doesn't get a choice, because that's what ownership was sort of like. We need something now, and this guy, I know him. I still talk to him, and he says he'll come here if we do this. So tough luck, Dave. You've tried. I imagine you've had some say in some other moves. So this is your pony, even though you didn't want to ride it. This is what you're gonna have to deal with. So hopefully,
I do wonder with how quickly this team seems to be signing. Now they have signed another guy. They've signed Miguel Berry, who's not really. I'm not sure Wayne knew who Miguel Berry was.
No chance. 0% chance
before he came here. But they really seem to be not, basically fully laying down, but certainly giving Wayne a run of the show here. I wonder if I will say this, if we find out, I'm going to say in the next few months, I will not be surprised if maybe Dave Casper resigns. Like, maybe this was ownership after that 7-0 loss saying, you know what, Wayne wants to come here. We're bringing him in. Dave, we'll listen to you, but you're gonna take a seat to the side here on this one. We're gonna let
Dave, like
we're gonna
it or
give Wayne
don't.
what he wants, basically.
This is a new leader coming in and saying, I'm not firing you, but I'm going to make your life pretty crappy, and you can decide to quit if you'd like.
Yep.
So maybe there might be something to that.
There definitely might be something to that. Who knows?
Let's talk about the Wayne Rooney Rolodex.
The Rolodex coming in. First, let's start with probably one of the more controversial signings the team is, I think, going to have this offseason, which is Ravel Morrison. A player I actually did not really know that well. I pay attention sort of to the sides of European soccer. Was a player who was apparently was a teenage prodigy, incredibly skilled player, but had some incredible attitude issues. We won't. You know what? I'm not going to sugarcoat it for fans. In his 20s, he threatened his partner at the time and her mom with an acid attack. He also was involved in a situation where he was threatening witnesses who I think his friends had robbed, or he had taken part. I can't remember exactly what happened.
It was his friends. His friends had robbed this kid, and the kid was going to go to authorities, and he didn't want them to be. So I will say, threatening is bad, and those things are horrible. Absolutely. This is a kid that was in his 20s, just out of control, doing the wrong things, stealing boots from the locker room for his friends who asked for them. He was seemingly doing all these things for his friends, for his group of friends. I advise you. Go ahead. I was going to say I advise you to read the Athletic article as from a balanced perspective of what's something good you could say about this guy that sort of explains some of what his life has been. There's a lot of stuff there. He's an interesting case who hopefully has grown up.
Yeah, and I think, the only thing we can say, and, it's been brought up, well, maybe he's better at hiding it. I don't think that's, I don't think that. I think that's very unlikely at this point. He's kept his nose, so to speak, clean since 2015, I guess, was sort of the last sort of major incident. Wayne seems to really trust him, says he's, grown and matured as a human being. So I think that is certainly something to take into account with what he thinks. I think a lot of people talked about how he really looked his best he's looked in a while playing at Derby.
He played his most games for Derby, more than he has played with any club in his entire career in one season, in one full season. And Wayne kept him out of the team for 8 games in a row because he was training like crap. And he's like, you're not doing your best, so you're not going to play. And he said that during that time, he did what he was asked, and he got on with it. I think that and the gap in time and the type of things that he did when he was in his 20s, to me, bear the hallmark of a person getting older and maturing. He's still.
It's what
people do.
It's what we see. I mean, the article doesn't, I think, go into a lot of his home life, and I'm not asking you to read the article. Oh, suddenly you'll like him. I'm not asking that. I'm not rushing out to buy a Ravel Morrison jersey, once he's signed. And I don't think he's going to fly off.
He's only going to be here for a year anyway. So even if it goes well,
a year, it's going to be purely if Wayne stays that extra option year, whether he gets 2 years or not. But I mean, I think, can he come in and could he be, effective here? I think he could. And I think if those, I mean, I think I said it on tweet, he has a short leash. if something else happens while he's here, that's it. You're gone. Contract canceled. And I'm hopeful there is some, very strict, good morals types of parts of the contract that say, if you, screw this up, we find you, arrested or anything like that, you're gone. We're done. We're gonna, remove you from the roster, and, you can, we'll see you later. So I hope those are in there. Obviously, I think we do need, in a certain sense, to allow people to grow from past instances. And I think if he has clearly shown he's at least kept his nose clean, I think we should allow him, based on the whole of his life, we should allow him to show that chance to grow. So,
and if he's
apparently the deal.
I was saying Wayne's giving him a character reference here. That should matter because it's sort of his name on the line here. And also, we talked about before about Wayne crumpling up Lucy's spreadsheets. his take was, show me who you want to get for this role, this number 10 role. And then he watched all the tape and he's like, Ravel's better than all these people. No, not even close. He's going to be one of the best attacking players in MLS if he comes here. So take that for what it's worth. You've signed this guy, right? You've signed Wayne Rooney and given him the keys. Let him drive. He could be right. He could be wrong. You've empowered this man. So give it a guy. You gotta let him cook. You gotta let him cook, as the kids say. see what he can do for a year and a half, and then at the end of it, we'll be in some sort of new space here, and then we'll see where we go from there. This is not a rebuild. It is a rebuild of the roster. It's like a short term rebuild. In a year and a half, we're not going to know anymore who DC United of the future is, because they're going to have to bring a new coach in, and it's going to be different. So just focus on the now. And if Wayne wants this, and it's not going to, he's on a, like you said, a year and an option. See how it goes.
It's identical. It's identical to Wayne's contract, basically. It's like, I think he's probably rest of the year, and then he's on a year for 2023, and then it's an option year.
Yep.
So it's identical to Wayne's contract. He's here while Wayne's here, basically. If Wayne's gone at the end of the next year, you won't see Ravel Morrison around, most likely.
So we missed out on Jesse Lingard, unfortunately. That would have been very exciting. He ended up going to Saudi Arabia for $1 billion, I believe, is the answer. Miguel Berry, we just glanced on it really quick, but just so you know who he is, in case you somehow missed it. Columbus Crew player, forward who got buried by Cucho's arrival and got sort of lost his spot. He had previously been on loan for San Diego Loyal, Landon Donovan's club. Mm-hmm. Landon Donovan called him one of the better strikers in the country. So he knows a little bit about that, so that's good. The move is on, I think, about $250,000 in GAM, spread over 2 years. I would not imagine that you'd want this guy to be your everyday number 9. I just don't think you would want that necessarily. It would be unless Wayne really wants to. Jackson Hopkins is maybe an indicator that maybe Miguel Berry is your 9, because he's talking about, what are the players that are hungry, young, with skill, and I'll throw them out there and we'll see how they go, sink or swim. So maybe it is. We'll see. I would imagine that with 2 DB slots open and none of the players being discussed so far being in that role, I think he's going to want to fill at least one of those with a pedigreed number 9 that will score 20 goals in a season. I think
very possibly. I would say if they still have a designated player slot right now, I'm thinking, based on what we've heard, I'm thinking they'll get one more DP. I'm not sure where it is going to be on the field. That's going to be probably the big question. I'm trying to think about where you would put it. I hope it's not defender, and I'll go into the many reasons why that is a very, very bad move in a lot of ways. Nothing looks worse than signing a designated player, goalkeeper or defender, and having it completely crash and burn.
Like Tim Howard?
You look complete. Well, Tim Howard. Okay, yeah, I won't get into that. Tim Howard did have a good first season with Colorado. I think Colorado made a run to the Western Conference Final before very clearly suffering the signs of age. So it was a complete disaster for him. But it was, yeah. But you look silly. Reza, I think the goalkeeper for Algeria that Philly signed. You look ridiculous. It is honestly worse, in my opinion, to whiff on a defensive signing on a defensive DP signing than it is to whiff on an attacking signing. And that's just the way the roster rules. It's dumb. It's the way the roster rules are constructed and what they incentivize versus what they don't incentivize. But regards of Miguel Berry, he was a guy, talked about early this year by a lot of the, your Matt Doyles, your guys who, sit down and have time to watch all these games because they're paid to, said he was really good. Many people thought he had taken Giassi Zarde's spot, and then the team traded Giassi Zardes and said, well, we're going to sign a designated player. He has not had the impact he had last season, although I will say, I imagine possibly they told him, hey, we're looking at this other guy. You're not going to be the guy here. We're going to look elsewhere here. We've got this guy we're interested in. We're going to, he wants to come here. He's going to get the starting role. And then they looked for an opportunity for him to get her. A lot of teams apparently were interested in. So DC did beat them out. So if you talk about one thing that maybe Dave Casper is good for, it's negotiating these trades. This is kind of his wheel. Yeah, this is his wheelhouse 100% in what he's able to do.
Let's talk Phil Jones, Ted.
Phil Jones, yep. Whew. I saw this and said, oh God, please no, because my first thought was this is going to be a DP contract. Apparently, from what we read, I think in the article, I think they're looking at more of a loan deal for like a year. It would be sort of his last year at Man United. Then maybe there's an option. You could probably keep him at a TAM level. And then also next season, you're going to have some open defender slots. We'll see I'm very curious with Wayne in here, what's going to happen with Steve Birnbaum. Very curious. That's going to be one to watch. But with the move, so I'm more, I guess, okay with it, particularly because if it's not working out, I'm sure we can just send him back to Man United, say, nope, not working out, sorry. And then that's that, so to speak. He's already going to be, by the time we realize maybe it doesn't work out, we're already, entering the summer window. I still kind of don't hope it happens. I hope we have something else up our sleeve. But if it does happen and it is a loan deal, I'm not so 100% opposed to it. I'm just not excited by it.
Yeah. I mean, he's had a very rough 11 years at Man United. I believe it's been a really long time, two of his long contracts. Very diminished player. I think it'll be very bad for the league if Phil Jones comes in and is like nails center back for DC United. It'd be good for us. But I'll hold my breath until the Phil Jones articles are being reported by The Athletic and not just tabloids. And yeah, that's the big thing. There's basically there's going to be an article with Wayne Rooney and every player he's ever played with, who is out of contract or out of favor. We have a lot of questions to run through real quick, and we've already gone pretty long. So let's whip through these questions. From Right Stuff 7690 said, I think the question on so many minds is how much turnover has to happen to make this DC United team competitive next year, and who are the non-taxi guys you could really count on to stick around by year's end with contracts coming up? We've talked about this a couple times on episodes about sort of who's out and who's likely to stay. We can sort of whip through here real quick. I'll just whip through the roster real quick and say stay or go, and then you can say what you think as well. Next year, Tony Alfaro, stay or go?
Go.
Yep. Steve Birnbaum, stay or go?
Go, but I will not be surprised if he is back.
I think stay.
I will not be surprised. Yeah, you think he stays?
I think he stays on maybe somewhat of a lesser deal. I don't know that he can command his big money anywhere at this point. Russell Canals.
Well, this was his big money contract.
I know. I'm saying subsequent to now. Russell Canals.
Yep.
Stay or go?
Ooh. Probably go, honestly.
I think
I could see the move. I could see him. I'm going to put some money in saying that he will be left unprotected and he will end up at St. Louis next season.
I think we trade him now before we even get to that point.
If we don't trade him now,
yeah.
I will say that's most likely what's going to happen.
Jafal, stay or go? Stay. He's young.
Well, we'll see. Jafal takes an international slot.
And those are going to be very in demand by Wayne.
Yeah,
that's a good.
Yeah, I think you're going to see him drop back down. I think they're going to send him to Loudon at some point because I think they're going to bring in, if they sign the players that they're talking about. And they're going to free up probably one slot from the international slots. If they want to sign more, they're probably going to have to look to do some of the wizardry with the Loudon squad. So
Chris Durkin, stay or go? By the way, Chris Durkin is technically a supplemental 25 to 28 spot and on the homegrown and U22 initiative. So there is some funny money going on with making sure Chris Durkin gets paid. So you said stay, right? That's stay. Yep, for sure. Mm-hmm. Estrada, stay or go? This is an interesting one to me. Go. And here's why. International spot, $5 million fee. Don't necessarily think that he is going to create. You and I know. You and I have talked about this. There are some members of the fan base that are big fans of his. Look at his numbers, his accumulated numbers, as a sign of both his fit and skill. I think we can do a lot better, particularly at a $5 million transfer fee.
Yeah, and I think also this is I guess the interesting thing was I think Jeff Carlisle dropped whether Miguel Berry would mean that Ola Kamara would finally be on his way out, and I think apparently they've sort of changed their tune on Ola. Again, Ola was here. I think we're seeing guys that were around Wayne when he was here, even for a brief time. He maybe has seen a little bit more of them.
But he's out of contract, right?
They're getting, he's out of contract next season. But they're giving him maybe a little bit of a boost. Apparently, I guess they want him to stick around. I think that's why Estrada is probably the one who's going to be gone. Who's going to be gone next season?
Interesting. Taxi, stay. No, go.
Stay, obviously.
Jeremy Garay is he's a homegrown on a supplemental spot deal. Who cares?
Yeah,
Loudon.
definitely stay.
Yep. Jacob Green, same story, stay. Loudon. Sammy Guidry. Put him back in Loudon. Put him back in Loudon where he's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Bill Hamid, stay or go.
Go.
Yep. Brendan Hines-Ike, stay or go.
Stay.
I'd listen to offers on Brendan.
Really?
I would. I don't know that you're going to get any, but I'd listen.
I think in a better defensive system, I think he would do better. I'll be curious. I kind of want him to sort of stick around. I think he's been one of the better defenders. Our defense has been poor, but he's been the one guy I think that has shown an ability to be to rise above a little bit.
Jackson Hopkins, who still does not have a profile picture on DCUnited.com or on FootMob. Stay, obviously. Ola Kamara, according to you, think maybe going to stay. I think, the man scores goals.
Well, no, here, yeah. Let me say, I think he stays through this year, and we'll see what happens next year. I think the fact that the team didn't get what they wanted for him, I think says a lot. So
you're saying that the return on Ola in the league for a half season is low, and that's why they're going to keep him?
I think they're going to keep him around because I think right now it's worth it maybe to have him at least in there as a guy who kind of fits the 4-2-3-1 system, so you can kind of build around that, and then you kind of make an assessment as to whether you're going to bring in a big striker. Estrada doesn't fit that role.
I like that. Ted, I think that's a great point because this season is about evaluation anyway. So basically, what you have is a stand-in for a real number 9 that you want. Like a facsimile version of that in Ola Kamara, and I think that's exactly right. John Kempen, stay or go? He's going to stay.
Go.
He's going to stay. Otherwise, they're going to have to replace 3 goalies because I'm going to keep talking here. Ted Cudi-Pietro, stay. I'd love to see him get some more minutes. He needs to maybe go down to Loudon full time and get minutes because I don't like this for him. Andy Nahar, stay or go? Stay. On a new contract, finally getting what he deserves.
He's probably going to shift up to the left wing. I think that's in his future, honestly.
Hopefully he stays healthy with that.
Left or right wing, I should say. Maybe as like a depth option over there for Jackson. I think you're going to see less appearances from him, though.
I think you're right. That's a good point too. As a shift, his value really was that center back that could do it all in that 3-back system.
It's not going to work in a 4-back system.
And I don't know when you put him up against the wingers in the league how much better he is. It was an anomaly that created matchup problems where he was, and now he may just be a guy, like a good guy, but nothing that is either irreplaceable on a roster or somebody that you can't match up against and find a way to neutralize. Hey, this is John. I just wanted to take a quick minute to thank you for listening to the show. If you'd like to support our work and keep this train running on time, there's a couple of ways that you can support us. First, you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/RFK Refugees. Any amount you'd like to give is great. Our Patreons will get the full audio of our shows on Monday night every week, a day or 3 days earlier than everyone else. You could also subscribe to our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/RFK Refugees. You can either use your own money or utilize your 1 free monthly subscription if you have Amazon Prime. And lastly, you could buy merch. We have stickers and scarves available on rfkrefugees.com, and we'll have t-shirts available later this season. We love doing this show for you guys and appreciate all the support we've received over the years. Now, back to the show. Moses Nyman, the forgotten man who has finally gotten back to the bench. Keep, obviously.
Yeah, stay, and I hope he gets some more opportunities. I think he is. I think he's kind of been in the doghouse since I think the incident in Cincinnati. I feel like his career maybe is starting to stagnate a little bit, and I think he needs maybe an opportunity out there on the field.
Or he's going to be
really
Griffin Yao.
Minutes. Yep, absolutely.
Chris Doyachim, stay or go?
I think this might be his last year. Yeah, if I'm being honest.
I think that's right too.
Yeah. It's a question of whether, he is more of a fullback. I don't think he's quite like the wingback type of role. So it might fit a little bit better, but I mean, I could also see him staying. He's cheap, he's depth, maybe he stays.
And there's only so many.
He was around here with Wayne as well, so Wayne knows who he is.
There's only so much turnaround they can afford to do here in this amount of time too. So he may be a recipient of luck in that way. Adrian Perez, probably go.
Probably gone. Yeah.
Donovan Pines, stay for sure for me. I mean, I think he's had his best year yet, even though he hasn't played that much. Progress for sure. All right, Nigel Robertha, stay or go. International spot, 1 goal.
See, this is the tough. I think this is actually kind of a tough one because he's still not an old player. He's still pretty young. I'm probably going to say go. If we're talking full rebuild, probably he's going to be gone after this season.
Yep, I would also say go. We have our new Chilean, Martin Rodriguez,
he'll probably stay.
He will stay. He's on a 3-year deal. Rafael Romo, stay or go?
Go.
Go or stay as a backup. I cannot have this man as a starting goalkeeper. I mean, I can, but I really don't want to. I prefer for him just to go, but they just signed him. I think I might be hard to swing.
Yeah, and the biggest, I mean, he takes up an international roster spot.
He's not listed to have on here, but that he has to because he has a green card. It's just not listed here.
No way. Yeah.
Samake, international play, also taking an international spot.
He's probably go back to Loudon, honestly.
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe he fits better in a fullback system versus a wingback system. I don't know.
He'll get his chances.
I mean, probably. Yeah.
Hayden Sargis.
You know what? Saying that, I could see Rafael Romo staying as a backup because I forgot about Samake. He's also taken an international slot. So there are international players that clearly have not worked out that you will probably see go, or just really be swapped out for other pieces.
I've got one here that's going to be interesting now. That is going to be maybe different than what we would have said for the last year and a half. But Hayden Sargis, a player a transfer fee paid to Sacramento Republic. This man has played very little, both at Loudon or at DC United. Just keep.
Has he played at all for DC this season? In games that, obviously non-Open Cup.
Nope.
Games. I don't think I've seen him take the field.
Nope. But he's also not even playing much for Loudon. He disappeared for about a month and a half.
Yeah, I don't know. He's probably going to be a go. He'll probably go. I think it was just a bad situation for him to be in. Honestly,
it's clearly not clicking for him at Loudon. Hopefully he figures it out.
Yep.
Drew Skundrich. I bet people are going to be mad at this one, but I think we're both going to agree on this.
You think we are? I think I could see him staying.
Me too.
I do. I think he's cheap. I think he is the line. He will become the line. He will become the guy on the roster where, if you can push him down further on the roster, he gets fewer appearances, then things must be going better. If he gets a majority of the same amount of appearances he's getting next season as this season, we're in trouble. Things have gone horribly wrong in a lot of ways. So he's going to be that sort of that barometer.
Imagine if the last guy on the bench you have has as much experience with this club as Drew has gotten from this time. That's a big attribute. And, everyone has their problems with Drew. Coaches like him because he plays, right? Like he's always available and they put him out there. They see something a lot of the fans don't. So you got to keep that in mind as a player that's on no money, that's not taking a national spot. He's going to stay.
And I will say he has been asked pretty much his whole time here, I think, to play a role that he's not suited for. He's been asked to sort of be like an engine box to box type midfielder. This team shifts the attack. Maybe he shifts down to, a defensive midfield type position. And maybe we see a different side of him. Maybe also the Spirit might be paying some money to keep him around so they can hold on to Andy Sullivan. Who knows? Could be that going on too.
Brad Smith, I think you have to keep him now because he's injured. They're going to release him during recovery.
I think they'll give him. They're going to be giving him till the end of the year. Maybe he comes back on a cheaper option, but I'm pretty sure they did not extend any part of his contract, and with the way, again, it's the same situation with Gressel. Does he fit this system as a fullback? He's still much more of a wingback type of player. I don't think he's back next year.
What a disaster of a move then. What a disaster of a $750,000 a game for a player who already tore his ACL once on his second ACL tear on a disaster season. This was the panic move that had to be made after Paredes got sold, and the money. That was almost all of the Paul Arriola money was on Brad Smith coming here to play 16 games. So that'll be a disaster of a move if that turns out to be no more contributions. And I think you might be right. Last one, international player, player who up until now has contributed nothing to this club, Camarnie Smith, stay or go, who now all of a sudden has a goal and is actually creating some dangerous chances and putting in some good crosses from the left-hand side.
I'm going to say stay right now because it seems pretty clear that, we talk about the player that Joseph Mora was looking like he was going to, at 2018, he was going to be done. Stepped up his game as soon as Wayne Rooney was out on the field. Maybe we're getting the same thing with Camarnie Smith. You got a different coach in there, and suddenly there's a little bit more of a pep in your step. He's on. I think he's on a prove it right now. I'm trending towards stay, just because I'm seeing some things with him that are impressive. But I think he's very much. I would not be surprised if that falls off and he's a go.
And he's English.
He's a leave.
So that's probably an attribute here. All right, so that's a long question, but if we look back at that, players that for sure we say are a stay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 players out of the whole roster we both agreed on to stay. That would be a complete studs down rebuild, tear down of this roster. It's what needs to happen. Look at where this roster is, and I bet Wayne Rooney didn't also. I mean, in his druthers, he's already done Derby. I'm sure he'd like to one day be at a club that does not require either a saving from a ridiculous penalty or having to rebuild the club entirely. But I would say don't buy any jerseys with name on it that doesn't have Fountas on it at this moment. And and that there's not many players you can count on for sure to be here next year if this team is really going to a full rebuild. And I think the Gressel move says that it is, because he was our best player as far as other than Taxi Fountas. All right, this is a long episode, everybody. So if you're still here, congrats. This is gonna be an endurance one. Brian is asking if that's the last question. Oh no, it's not. It's the first question. Question about Pines. How much time until Pines gets back in the lineup to give him an extended run in the back four? Homegrown contract has flashed real upside. I personally feel he needs to be in there growing, learning towards being a valuable piece you keep or trade. What do you think?
So I don't want to. I think we said that Pines has shown. I think he's eliminated. Again, I will say he's not gotten as many appearances, but he has sort of cleaned up his game a little bit. I think he is suffering. The reason why I want to keep Brendan Hines-Ike around is because I think that he has his skill, and you can't tear down. But so much. You can do a lot of teardown. I think I'd still like to keep some guys around that maybe, yes, they didn't perform that well, but maybe you surround them with a couple other players. You have an overall better attacking scheme going forward. You have a better idea of how you want to play. Then I think he can fit in well. So, yeah, I mean, I think Pines will be around. I'd be very surprised if they trade him.
But when does he get into the lineup on a regular basis here this season? Do you see it coming or no?
If we're going to a 4-back, 2-back, so 2 center back system, presumably, I think it could be tough this year. I'm not sure. I think you see maybe some rotation there. Mm-hmm. He'll probably get some appearances, some chances. I think it's going to depend on, who leaves in that center back role, and then who maybe opens up a slot where he can step up and sign in. Or if Wayne just says, you know what, we're going to give you the keys and, we're going to try you out for, March. And then if we start getting towards the window and things aren't looking well, we make a move to try to bring someone else in. I don't know.
The tough move there would be you'd probably say, Steve, who's coming up on the end of a contract, you're the one who sits. And we go Donovan Brendan here for the rest of this. I also don't think I don't see the white flag flying yet publicly, and we all know historically they won't fly it until they are mathematically eliminated, regardless of anything else that, any good sense that you see. But I think that once we get closer to that, if we continue to not pick up wins at all, I think maybe you see the rotation happen a lot more in those places with young players. C. Matthews 41 says, thoughts on how Miguel Berry fits compared to the slew of other strikers. we don't know much about Miguel Berry. Ted or I we're not gonna front there on. Didn't watch him at San Diego. We know that his production this year was down compared to previously, but he's a thing that DC United has lacked is young strikers on this team. That's usually not a position where young players have gotten a lot of run. Like, they bought internationally some players who are not very old and have opportunities, but this is like he's born internationally but was raised in the United States. This is like a young domestic-ish player, and they're going to see what they got with him. He seemed ready at Columbus enough to trade. Why can't I remember his name? The striker they traded to
Jesse
Zardes. Clearly had impressed enough there to make that happen and didn't really fulfill the promise. But I think we're in a spot to see what he's got, him and Ola.
Yeah. I mean, I think he'll play more as a target person. He does sort of fit, I think, pretty sure that they play sort of like a 4-2-3-1. So assuming you place Taxi not necessarily as, or Ravel Morrison. I'm still curious kind of where Taxi, I'm trying to figure out where Taxi's going to fit in all this. Does he move up as your striker? He seems like he plays better when, sort of back from the ball. This change of formation is causing me to question a little bit about, what's the deal with the best player we have on this team right now,
right? Which
is Taxi Fountas. My idea, maybe he plays as sort of that shadow striker, but then also you just sign Ravel Morrison. So Ravel Morrison conceivably occupies that role unless you move him back a little bit. So curious, I'll be very curious to see how all this sort of fits in with what Wayne's trying to do.
Red Card 5 says, is the FO shopping the entire team, and is that why Gressel didn't know ahead of time? I think they're probably taking calls on everybody, yeah. But I don't think that's why Gressel didn't know. Eric Eversman asked about the starting 11. We kind of got into that. But who are the young people you want to see get minutes with an eye to 2023? I think Pines and Nyman are two players that you'd want to see get some minutes.
Pines, Nyman, Hopkins.
To continue.
Yeah, Q to Pietro, certainly.
Yeah, that would be great to see Ted off the bench. It's Craig Fontes says, hype aside, and that's hard for me. How much of a difference are we really expecting Rooney will make to get us competitive? I know he's got the Rolodex, as folks keep saying, but given our current state, how much can he realistically do? It all depends on this offseason, right? And what it's going to be a single season role. Preseason is going to be extremely important because it's going to be a bunch of players that haven't played with each other before, probably with the turnover that's going to happen. And he's got that season, so it's going to be different. Unlike any season you've ever been as a DC United fan, this is a short-term engagement that we're all going to watch and see how it goes. I don't know how much of it. I think it's hard to say, but I'm excited to see sort of what giving him the keys means and what we're going to look like next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think right now we've seen his ability to bring guys in and to attract players, and I think that is an important aspect to it. We're also seeing the ownership, really willing to blow this thing up. I mean, it would have been very, we've seen them time and time again say, well, they could have very said, well, Wayne, let's not blow it up completely. Why don't you assess the team and then we get together in January? Nope. It was like, we need to just completely rehaul this whole thing. And they're letting him do it. And I think that is something of note that I don't think would happen with another coach.
It's like an HGTV show where the guy gets to come in and completely blow up the house, and hopefully it looks good at the end of it. Thank you for all your questions, and also thanks for sticking around for a marathon show. You'll be listening to this on Tuesday. If you wanted to be listening to it on Monday night, make sure you join our Patreon at patreon.com/RFK Refugees. If you want to watch us live, you can always do that on Twitch at 8:30 every Monday night. But also you can subscribe to Twitch with your Amazon Prime subscription or just with regular. That doesn't get you anything, but it supports the show, and that helps us continue to justify to our significant others all the time we spend doing this on Monday nights.
Yep. I think that's going to do it for us tonight, guys. If you listen on the Twitch stream, I think we've had a marathon show. So we appreciate you guys sticking around. We will catch you guys next Monday, and we'll look for the Spirit. The Spirit content will come out on its usual Thursday time frame. We'll probably try to record that tomorrow. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening, and we will... Sorry, do you want to drop one more thing?
Yeah, Jackson Hopkins, look out for him. He'll be also dropping in this same podcast feed later this week.
Yep. So definitely check that out. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you guys next week. Vamos.
Vamos.